Welcome to my studio. My baby is now napping, so this is really happy hour for mommy. I am just going to be preparing my space to be starting a new painting. Whenever my baby is napping, I'm always faced with the dilemma of whether I should be painting or getting into the administrative stuff of the business. The last couple of days, I've just been doing a lot more work that is administrative, writing emails and writing workshop guides and all kinds of things. So I felt like today would be a great opportunity for me to just revisit myself and do painting. I'm setting aside a painting that I did a couple of days ago. I'm not really sure where to go with that painting, but sometimes that happens. I enjoy taking my time preparing my space, selecting my paints, slowly dropping them into the boxes. You can never have enough of color. When I first started this YouTube channel, one of the things that I was worried about was figuring out what kind of content to have. In fact, committing to showing up once a week and putting up a video, whether it's a tutorial or a chat or a painting, also felt like a lot of pressure. So one of the ways that I have done to release myself of that pressure is to really just keep my videos as simple as possible and to also just paint what I love. Sometimes I might do a tutorial and sometimes I might just paint a bouquet that I really want. Today, one of the things that I was really feeling for was movement. I really wanted to just paint something that was large, that was watery, and that just was made up of really big shapes. So even though I have got a reference photo in front of me, that's just going to serve as a guide, because what I wanted to be led by was the shapes that I saw, the colors that I wanted to use, and the flow of water in my painting. It's so nice to have you for company today as you are watching me paint. I am going to be doing this really loose painting, and I would encourage you to take out whatever things that you like to create with, whether it's acrylic, gouache, watercolor, doodling, and just sit down, relax, and paint along with me as we have a chat on different things that kind of pop up in my mind. Today's painting is really led by what I felt like doing more than what I saw in a reference photo. And sometimes paintings need to feel that way, where you just follow shapes and you follow your intuition and the colors. And I find that it's so healthy for us to dive into this, especially for myself, where I am creating all the time, whether it's content on social media or to my email subscribers or to my community and for workshops and all of that. So this was something that I was really craving for, and I invite you to come join me. I think the hardest part of starting a painting is probably the first shape that you put down, because I find that no matter what kind of reference photo that you have, it doesn't prepare you for the way in which watercolor can be. There's that unpredictable nature with the way it moves with water, and also depending on the technique that you choose. And here I'm doing wet in wet, which is where the paint and water is just going to flow and move on the paper, and unknowingly it moves in ways that I don't expect or I don't want. Sometimes it might bleed into each other and I might not realize it when I get to one part of the paper and I look down, it has bled into the other color. And sometimes I learn that muddy colors appear, or I learned that I might have put down two colors that shouldn't be next to each other. There are so many different things that could happen, and that unpredictability has also prepared me for the unpredictability that happens in life. I live with 3 young children. So I am currently putting on some brusho, which is a powdered based pigment. And the nice thing about brusho is that it moves where it's wet, so it's almost like sprinkling some magic into your painting. I will be linking that in the description below, but this really makes the whole painting even more unpredictable. And I have not really swatched my brusho pigments, so sometimes I get surprised when the colors turn out different from what they're described or what they're named for. And I'm using my fingers to sprinkle it, but I want to caution you that when you use powdered pigment, they stick on your fingers as well, because you've got oil glands in your fingers, and as a result you might end up getting stains on your clothes if your pigments are still stuck to your fingers. So just something for you to know if you're keen on trying out brusho pigments. I do find that they're messy, but messiness is really part of creating the art. Oh yes, so I was talking about the unpredictability of having 3 kids and how it has been creating art while also having to care for my 3 young children. So at this stage, we are in 2023, and as of this recording, my oldest is 5, and then I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, recently turned 2-year-old. Now their age gaps are all really close, and it almost feels like I have not had good sleep in a long time. And I laugh as I say this because my kids still wake up in the middle of the night, and when you wake up, you still have to function as though nothing happened in the middle of the night. So I've learned to basically survive, and if anything, I find that art has been what's kept me awake. It has given me this sense of purpose where I have this newfound driver that I look forward to beyond just being a mom. I love spending time with my kids, but I also find that while I was knee deep in the first couple of years when they're really young, it can be really tiring, and sometimes can feel really hard on days where you're alone doing it. My husband is in the office and having to care for them, whether it's their meals and all of that. So I'm actually curious if you are watching this and listening to me paint, whether you're a mom or who you are, what identity you're serving right now, drop me a note in the comments, because this is going to be a video where we are just engaging with one another as well as you're watching me paint. Whenever you're painting from a reference photo, there's always this possibility of getting stuck in following the exact colors that you see on the page. I try my best to get out of that by just picking out different colors so that I don't get fixated on the colors that are in the reference photo. The danger in doing photos that are in the reference photo is that I find that sometimes I end up getting stuck in all the details, and it defeats the purpose of painting loosely. At the same time, training your brain to see something totally different from what's in front of you really also takes a lot of practice and patience. So try out painting or trying out doing something that is different from what you see in front of you might not necessarily translate very well on paper, and I've got so many times where I've had to throw out bad pieces of art that didn't work out, and I find that it's important to still have that practice, because if not for it, you would not learn about what you could possibly do. So I was exaggerating when I said I throw out bad art. So what happens is that I've got this stack where I recycle it. And the fun thing is that with kids now, they will come in and they would see this box that they know are paintings that they can touch, because usually paintings that are on my table that are still in a work in progress, sometimes I might leave it there, which is a lot of trust in my young kids if you think about it. But I've not had them put their fingers in it so often. Well, I had one instance where she had put in purple paint, and then she thought that she was beautifying it for me because it was her favorite color, and I got mad. I got so angry, and on hindsight, when I think about it and came back down to reflecting on the way I reacted, it was really not how I should have done. And I apologized and I told her that I had trusted her, and it was really hard. But I think that that moment also was something that was waiting to happen. In fact, having my tools and everything out there for my kids to look at is almost like being in a candy store, if you think about it. All these beautiful colors and brushes and color pencils just lying around, is just waiting for something to happen. So my kids have this box now where they get to explore some of my art that I didn't feel so good about. And the sweetest thing is that these kids, they don't know the difference or what is good and bad art. For them, it's just beautiful colors and beautiful shapes, and they would come in and they would ask me like, "Mommy, this is so nice. I like it. I think it's your best work." And it's so sweet, because these are the things that sometimes we don't even say to ourselves as we are painting. So I find that having kids has taught me so much. Together with them watching me create and paint, they have shown me how to be kinder to myself, and I want to really preserve that in them as well. So I have also been trying to practice more kindness And sometimes I don't call that box the box that I'm going to recycle. In fact, I just tell them that it's art pieces that they can take or help themselves to. And I find that they really like it so much. And it's almost a bonding moment where they will come into the room and they would just want to scavenge to see what they can find in that box that is reserved for them. And of course, every now and then I put in a couple that I like as well, and they would pull it out. And I've had my 5-year-old sneak a few pieces to school as well, and she would tell me like, oh, I brought this to school, I showed it to my friends, I gave it to my teacher, and so on. And I think that these are really, of course, the way she expresses and shows her love and kindness to others also by giving. So she's a gifts girl, if you think about the 5 languages of love, if you're familiar with it. So for her, she's gifts, and giving art to others is something that she loves to do. So I am currently at this stage of my painting where I am starting to want to add a couple more layers, some details. I've already got some of my big shapes. But the nice thing about this art piece that I really loved was that it met what I wanted, which was movement and flow, which was what I was craving for when I mentioned that I had started this painting. So there's so many beautiful blends and bleeds and all of those colors interacting together, the greens, the blues, and the reds. And I am still adding a couple of watery edges around so you get this sense of distance. I love to use the big brush to add water and then go back in and kind of dab. I also sometimes find that interchanging my brushes between the big and the small brushes means that I get different size shapes in my painting. I think sometimes while we get into flow, we forget that we have been holding on to the same brush for a long time. So think about interchanging your brushes as well, because that's going to help you to develop difference in shapes and sizes and your paintings, because that's going to create so much more variation and life. Can I just be honest that I had set out this video initially to just be sharing with you my process and talking you through the different ideas, but because this painting had so much movement and flow and things were happening on its own, I felt like you needed to see it on your own rather than hear me explain it. And with all of that water and wetness and how all of the paints moved and interacted with one another, it was really how this painting started to come alive in that sense. And I felt like sometimes there's some videos that I want to reserve where you just hear me speak and get to know me a little beyond the art, while you might be here enjoying the tutorials that I'm giving you. I feel like I want more than just provide tutorials, that in this channel we can do chats like these where we talk about things associated with art and life and all of these things, because I think if you have done watercolor, you would also see that it hasn't just been purely about techniques. Watercolor is an immersive experience. And to immerse yourself in that experience is about leaning into all of the different elements and messes, and it's beyond techniques, and it's also about the things that you say in your head, which is where the conversation that I just had with you about making some of that ugly art and putting them in those boxes and then having my kids discover it and then them being my external source of encouragement coming from a 5-year-old, 4-year-old telling me that, oh, mommy, this is beautiful, are really lessons that I have learned to also take in for myself and to start seeing the good in specific parts of my painting or even the good in the experience. Sometimes the outcome doesn't really come out as what you want, but then the experience, the whole point of you showing up, preparing your paint, sitting down and actually painting, that experience was just so grounding, meditative, and it felt good for you. I think that's what matters more than how the art turns out in the end. And of course, that's that really nice private experience that you get to feel for yourself, because you see, on Instagram and on YouTube now, wherever you are on social media, it's almost this lack of privacy where everyone is just sharing everything and doing everything. All the secrets are spilled. There is no feelings of intimacy with yourself, and having that alone time with you, your paints, and the whole experience of just enjoying the process unfold from nothing into something is such a sacred one. And sometimes whenever we bring up this word process, it's such a huge word. It can mean so many different things. Process can start at different start points as well. You can start in the beginning. You can start when the moment of conceptualization, when you're thinking about painting, or it could even start while you're scrolling through social media or taking a walk in nature where something kind of sparks your interest to make you go, hey, that's going to be something that's really nice to paint. So process is really such a huge word, and I think that we need to see it beyond just the art piece or that creation part alone. It really takes shape the moment you start considering showing up or considering thinking about doing something for yourself. So this entire footage has been filmed in real time. We haven't edited out stuff, maybe the parts where I went to the toilet or, I've gone down for a snack or something. But I did this painting in one sitting, and I was really lucky because my baby actually napped long enough. And when I was creating this painting, I wanted to also try and preserve the beautiful blends and bleeds in the painting that was created by all of those inks, and then trying to create definition where I'm adding in leaves that are a little bit more defined, so there's going to be that variation of push and pull in the painting. I often feel like the scariest part in the painting is when I go in and start to add layers. Well, there are different stages of scary. There's scary when you first start out doing the art. And then there's also scary when you drop in the paint and make blobs and try and tell people that they are actually blooms and you have to convince them through your painting. And then there's also scary where you're figuring out what colors to use or how to use your brush. There's so many different elements of scary throughout when you are painting. And I think that all of these fears are valid. In fact, I think they are part of the process that we talked about. So I often found that adding in layers can feel scary because there's so many different petals that you can see in your reference photos, and to eliminate or not have them in your painting almost feels like you needing to trust the viewer enough. And we don't know our viewers, just like how as you're watching me, I don't know what you're doing or how what setting you're in. We don't really know what's happening, but having to give our viewers that trust that they would be the ones filling in the gaps for us is really asking a lot. And I think that's the magic of loose florals, where a long time ago I told myself like no one's going to check on whether you missed out petal or whether you had forgotten something. And I think that we also need to grant ourselves that kindness to be allowed to discount certain details and to add details or elements that we want instead of having to overcrowd a painting and put in every single color that we love in our palette. I don't know about you, but every time I'm painting, I often feel like time just escapes me. I don't even realize how time has moved, and everything is almost like a standstill where it's just me, my breath, and the painting. And of course, the moment my child wakes up, then there's that, oh dear, and I would, I would go into a different kind of feeling. But overall, I always felt like painting has given me this meditation. It's been so important for me, I think, as part of self-care. Even though I'm doing this full-time as a job where I run workshops and I host a membership, I write blog posts, I write emails, I show up on social media. There's so many different hats that I have to wear. Painting is always that one thing that I always come back to. And that's what I really want for this channel, where I just show you the paintings that I like to do for fun, and I might have conversations like this, and it's almost like you and I are painting together and we have this companion thing. So, depending on where you are at, and if you have even watched to this point of the video, if you did, hooray! It's been so lovely having you here. But, I would encourage you next time, or if you are already doing so, grab your paints and take them out, sit down and paint together. It's almost like we are just doing this virtual painting thing, and I would love to see what you come up with. So you can connect with me on Instagram, where you can either tag me or show me your art in the direct message, because I think that's going to be so fun to see, and I would love that. That feels like a win, because this video is going out to people on the internet, and sometimes it feels good to get some interaction from it. So I would love to see your art if you paint it together with me, and I guess that's why it's called Paint with Me. If I don't talk you through this painting, you would have never guessed that there were times that I struggled with it. In fact, this big flower that I'm working on right now, I'm trying to figure out how am I going to create layers, because some of those brushel pigments that have been scattered around looks like blobs of red splatter that doesn't really create much direction or anything. So I also have to work through that. And the thing about brushel is that sometimes the pigment doesn't melt into the water. In fact, it might sit on top, and then when you go in with your brush and you kind of activate it again, it would start moving, and then again part of that unpredictability starts to take place. So that was something that I noticed as I was painting this big flower, and because it's such a big one, I was really trying to figure out what flower was it going to be. So I decided that I was going to make it into an English rose, a loose one, and I find that the best way to get direction with your florals is to know where the flower center is, because once you kind of get to know where the center is, you can pull all the petals towards it. It's a lot easier for you to navigate in that way. And then every time we struggle with a specific part of our painting, the problem is that we start to overwork it. When you start to go over with a brush, change color, add water, add paint, and do all kinds of things to it, we fiddle with it, and then we overwork it. And it's happened so much for me, which of course you don't see. And I want to tell you that that kind of stuff happens, the overworking, it's so real. So I find that working on large pieces like this, the helpful thing is that every time I struggle with one part of the painting, I would just move on to another part and another part, and I would just jump around instead. So there isn't really a sequence where I only work with leaves and I only work with this flower and I finish this flower, but I'm jumping around because it's me trying to process what I should do next, or I would just go with where it's dry, or I would take opportunities where that area is wet. So this is my system, or the way in which I paint. And I find it so important to know or recognize your own painting style or method, because I don't think there is really one right way to do it. Everyone does it differently, and I think the magic of watercolor and the magic of social media is such that we get to sample and taste or see what everyone else's method and techniques are, which is so magical, this art thing. Because can you imagine if we had got the opportunity to sit down with Michelangelo or Van Gogh and see their process and see how they did things? I think that would have been incredible. But of course, speaking of secrecy, which I talked about earlier in the video, I was saying that it's also nice to retain some of that magic that had happened in the painting between you and that art piece. Standing up to paint really helps to give me a lot more perspective, especially when I start to zoom into the details and I can find myself overworking. I would just stand up right away, and it actually helps me with perspective a lot more. And another thing that I like to do sometimes is that while I'm filming, I like to actually see my painting in the camera, because again, it gives me a different kind of perspective and view, something that I might not notice or see, but instead I get to see it in the camera. So I find that if you are sitting and painting, maybe change your position and see how it feels for your body as well, and then go from there. I wanted to share my gratitude and thanks to you being here with me, painting together. It's been really fun because not only did I get to share with you my process of this painting from start to finish, I also get to chat with you about different topics and different insights about art. If you liked this style of video or conversations that we were having, share with me your insights or tell me what you felt about it, because I like to keep conversations going and I'd love to engage with you further. I'm gonna leave you with me painting the rest of this piece in peace And I hope that you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being part of my unique journey. And thank you for also tuning in. Let me know if there is anything that you got from this or if there's anything that you hope to see. And I cannot wait to see you in the next video.